Bob and I have taught executives all over the world, and the line we hear most around the world in boardrooms and among executive teams is, Bob, Thomas, I hate social media, but I want to look good online. We've heard it all over the world. I hate social media, but I want to look good online. And I want to be sensitive to the fact that an awful lot of people really don't like social media and just treat it as a source of news. But we're moving into an environment where the social media channel is your social presence, is your digital presence, now reflects who you are. And interestingly enough, working with a lot of chief executives and helping them with their social media, the biggest benefit we've discovered from helping senior execs is on their employees, on their staff, on their colleagues, in terms of leading them and motivating them. The employees are definitely first. That is definitely the first reason to do it. And something as simple as a like, a share, a retweet is incredibly motivating for employees. Something as simple as that. And then after employees come suppliers. One of the things we've been fascinated by is a lot of CFOs, procurement directors use social media to bring in new suppliers with new angles, new stories, new approaches, new techniques. So it goes from employees is the first benefiter in terms of a board member serving their employee base, then come suppliers, then come customers, and lastly come shareholders. So it's actually the reverse of the way a board works, because a board obviously serves its shareholders first through a dividend. Okay, so I've been invited by Peter and Joel to talk about disrupting yourself. The first thing I wanted to start with was your mind. The way you're taught at school, the way you're taught at university, the way you're taught at church, if you went to church, the way you're taught in a corporation is to be closed. You're taught to hold information in and only release information on a need-to-know basis. And most people are taught that way. The second thing you're taught is you're taught to be selective. You're taught to be very careful which pieces of information you absorb and which pieces of information you share. The last thing you're taught is to be in control of everything. And in this world that we now live in, we've moved from this institutional thinking to what I call network thinking. And we've moved to an environment which is the inverse of all of these things that we've been taught. When you're online, you've got to be open. There is no benefit for you being closed online. If you want to be closed online, don't go online. The other thing you've got to do online is you've got to accept the random flow of the data. It's a muddle. Streams of data. Streams of tweets. A stream on Facebook. A muddle. A constant flow of images on Instagram. A constant series of messages or stories on Snapchat. An endless flow of private messages on WhatsApp. It's a muddle. You have to get used to the random muddle. And I've discovered that the more random you are, the better you'll perform as a board member. It takes a while to learn how to deal with random flow. And lastly, as Joel said this morning in his presentation about those 5 things, the number one thing was to be supportive. Absolutely. The number one thing online is to be supportive of others. And more than that, promote others. You are not there online to serve yourself. You are there to serve your followers. You are there to serve your audience. You are an editor. You are a teacher. You are a giver. You are a sharer. It's not about you, it's about them. And the trouble with being supportive is you have to deal with things like porn and trolls. And those things will not go away. In many cases, they're actually getting worse, particularly on Twitter, where they're really struggling to deal with trolls and porn. But the mindset shift is from being closed to open, from being selective with data to random, from having a desire for control and giving up a desire for control, and being supportive. We've tested this on a number of major boards around the world, and it takes 3 years to move an executive board across that crevasse. You won't do it any faster than that. And it's roughly 1 letter per year, if you want a rule of thumb. So, because the Wi-Fi is pretty slow in here, I won't ask you to take the test, but we've got a Why I Hate Social Media test. And you take the test, and we can tell you why you won't like it and you won't be good at it. So once you know you're hopeless at something, you never have to play it again, like I'm crap at golf. I'm always being invited to golf days, and I hate golf. Tennis days, suddenly they happen. So you'll be a color, and the social media color is yellow. The other colors really don't want to do social media. So if you want to take that test and find out what color you are, if you are yellow, social media is for you. If you're any of the other colors, you're just a listener, you're just a watcher, you're just an observer, you're just a skeptic. And if you're green, a good old-fashioned cynic. And we like cynics. So you're on this journey from CSC to ORS. As I say, the journey takes a number of years. I haven't found a way to speed it up. I should say we haven't found a way to speed it up. And it's very personal, it's very intimate, it's very challenging. And during that journey, you are developing a digital mindset. Now, the first website went up in the autumn of 1991. We've now passed that point. So we're now looking at 25 years of the World Wide Web behind us. We've had a generation of the World Wide Web, 25 years of it. So we're only as good as we are now. This is as good as we can get after 25 years, after a single generation. And we talk about a generation of typically 25 to 30 years with children. Our children are typically 25 to 30 years younger than us. So even after 25 years, most boardrooms do not have a digital mindset. They do not now in 2016. Now, on the upside, this is the very first year that Bob and I have really experienced a desire to change, a desire to shift. Oh, I must get this digital thing. Oh, I must look at this blockchain thing. Oh, this Internet of Things thing. Oh, I must get on Twitter. This is the first year, 2016. And if you look at the first definition of social media, it's around about 2003, 2004. So it's taken 10 years to make that shift. Now, the other shift is physical. Most people on boards can't use computers properly. You know this, for those of you who've got board directors who are in some form of digital pain. So you have to start people off on some things very, very basic. Things like WhatsApp. Creating a group of board members on WhatsApp is a massive breakthrough. Something as simple as that. Sitting next to somebody and showing them how difficult it is to use all these applications. They are not easy to use. And California is famous for saying things are easy to use, or the use case. Now, I used to be Alan Sugar's PA in the 1980s, in 1986, and I remember Alan's grubby little line, which was, where there's mystery, there's margin. And he used to say that over and over and over again in my ear in 1986. Where there's mystery, there's margin. And so in Silicon Valley, in the land of geekery, they create mystery all the time. And it's designed to fox and confuse corporation after corporation to buy software after software, license after license, in some crazy hope that there's something in the promised land. And in reality, there isn't. So we have a session that we do with board members called a core process, where we define someone's passion, what they stand for. And you saw that coming through Sue's fantastic story that she explained. And you saw at the end of Sue's presentation, she referred to campaigning, or being a campaigner, or I can't be everyone else's campaigner. Well, in Myers-Briggs profiles, Sue is an ENFP, which is a campaigner. So if you have a ENFP in your organization, you have yourself a Sue. So if you have a campaigner, give them a campaign. I'm sure you're familiar with that. The role of the core process is defined what one verb and one noun, which explains your life, what you're here to do in terms of serving others and serving other humans on the planet. So for me, that's changing lives. For my wife, it's connecting hearts. Each of you will have a verb and a noun that defines you. And I went through that with a young boy last summer, a guy called Joe Clark, who works at Deloitte. And Joe is 22, he's now 23. And we went through this with Joe last summer at Deloitte in June of 2015. And I said to Joe, what is it you're about? What are you trying to achieve? And he said, I want to win gold in Rio. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a hard one. And I don't know whether you know, but about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Joe Clark won gold in the kayak in Rio. And if you ask him about this conversation that we had, which takes about 4 hours to have this conversation, you can see just how incredible it is, his performance. Because Joe won that gold medal by 0.17 of a second. That's 17/100ths of a second, so that's about that much. And the first 6 kayakers were over the line in 0.9 of a second. So you can see in kayaking, it's very, very marginal. When you're online, you want to be, or you've got to be, the real you. We don't see the real you on Facebook. What we see is Stepford Wives. We see the version of your life that you wish to present to us. This holiday, that trip, this cocktail, that party, this award, this wedding, these babies, another congratulations. We don't see your misery. We don't see your depression. We don't see your failure. We don't see your upset. Is all we see is good news. We see Stepford Wives. And it's not believable. And people don't believe it. What you see on Twitter is something completely different. It's dirty, it's rude, it's aggressive, it's insulting, it's uncontaminated, it's nasty, it's intellectual, it's clever, it's forward-thinking. But you get the real world on Twitter, you get a world designed for yourself on Facebook. My message to you, our message to you, is be the real you. It's very, very hard for people to do that. Because social media is an illusion. And you're building a brand. You're building a digital presence, a social presence. You're building an image. You are the brand. But however skilled you are, you have bad days. And things go wrong. And you don't feel good. But people are very nervous about talking about the real them online. But if you want followers, if you want engagement, if you want conversation, if you want chat, if you want coffees, if you want deals, if you want outcomes, if you want transactions, you've got to be the real you. And the line I always remember, I don't know whether I heard this on a Dale Carnegie course 30 years ago, but if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I've always loved that line. You have to stand for something, which is why you need your core process. Because people have to know what you stand for. If you're a butterfly floating around, people will pass through you. The other thing is, accept the fact that all these tools are a nightmare to use, a total nightmare, whether it's Android, whether it's iOS, whether it's Windows 10, whatever device it is. I've always loved this, can you bring in another computer? These tools are not easy to use. Some people are total Android addicts. Some people are total Apple addicts. Some people are total Microsoft addicts. You have to learn how to use all of these things, and they are not easy to use, and you struggle. And when you're in a boardroom with board members, the last thing they want to do is to be embarrassed. They don't want to be embarrassed because it's insulting. They want to be skilled. They want to have confidence, and they're frightened. And many of them have had people helping them with these tools for the last 30 years, and they've got into these boardrooms without social media. So why should they suddenly need social media now at the age of 50, whatever it might be? So in California, in Silicon Valley, there's a network called the GAFA. Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. The GAFA. And if you look on Twitter, you'll see the hashtag GAFA. And it's called the GAFA. And this is where the power now resides. Now, you have to financially, as Phil said this morning, understand your numbers. You have to understand the scale of this power, right? Because this is not power like BlackBerry. This is not power like Nokia. These organizations are 10 times the size of those companies. Not 2 times the size, not 5 times the size. These companies are worth $500 billion, $500 billion, 350 billion pounds. Each of them has $100 billion of cash on deposit. If they make an error, they can afford to make a $10 billion error. It's very, very hard to make an error on that kind of scale without somebody mentioning. Now, these companies are becoming all-powerful. They're almost like governments or emerging governments. And you have to make a choice which one of these companies you work with. You actually don't have any choice anymore. You're having to use one of the 4 of them, or more than one of the 4 of them, almost every day. The power is sucking in. Because the wonderful thing about Silicon Valley is they believe in monopoly. Because they know the winner of the game is the one with all the names, and the one who gets all the names gets all the money. And the one who gets all the money gets all the market share, and the one who gets all the market share gets all the share price. And it's reflected in these 4. So you have to have a strategy with these 4 companies as your company. What is your relationship with Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon? And make no mistake, these companies are predators. They don't want some of the market, they want all of the market. They want to be the toll through which you pass. So when you're online, building your profile, read a lot. Most people don't read a lot. Your job is to serve your followers. Whether you're an Instagram lover, a Snapchat lover, whether you're a Facebook lover, a LinkedIn lover, a Twitter lover, whatever is your preferred platform, your job is to serve them, to think for them, to feed for them. A friend of mine, Phil Calvert, describes it as when you wake up in the morning, you're taking fish out of a little fish food tub, and you're sprinkling it on your little fish pond, your little fish tank, and the fish are coming up. Those are your followers. You've got to feed them, and you've got to feed them every day. And it takes time. Building your profile on a platform like Twitter, your own personal profile, if you want to build it into the stratosphere, will take you 4 hours a day. A day. That's 30 hours a week. That's 100 hours a month if you want to build your profile. And you haven't got time for that. There's no way you've got time for that. And perhaps you haven't got the skills for that. So you've either got to outsource it, give it to somebody else, or not do anything at all. And in a lot of boardrooms we travel to around the world, people choose to do nothing. And that's also a strategy. I won't join in. I'll opt for nothing. And that's very common now. Procrastination encourages you to do nothing. And in a world swamped in information that we're now in, it's easier to choose nothing. People don't like sharing everything. Only a few people like doing that. So I've got 3 millennials, 19, 22, and 24, up-and-comers, hopefully up-and-comers. And they're always showing me things on Snapchat and YouTube and say, oh, Dad, have a look at this. Have a look at this girl. Have a look at this bloke. Look at this. Look at this. They're always showing me things. And I'm always amazed at the different businesses that are being born. TJ, my youngest, took me to a sports event in Birmingham at the NEC to meet this guy who'd created this brand called Gymshark, G-Y-M, and Shark, all one word. And he designed these sports clothes for very good-looking people with great bodies. He'd built them, designed them himself, ordered them through Alibaba, and was sponsoring people with great bodies, men and women, on Instagram to promote this clothing. By the time I met him, he was 19, same age as my son, and he's doing £1 million a month. So I was really quite surprised for a 19-year-old to have a business like that, selling fashionable clothing, competing with many hundreds of sexy fashion brands for high-performance exercises. But I said to this young man, I said, how did you know to order things through Alibaba and pay people to promote things on Instagram? And do you know what he said in reply? I always remember how he could have knocked me over with a feather. He said, I didn't know any other way to do it. Because he only knew that way. That's the only way he knew. So keep an eye on the up-and-comers, particularly on Snapchat, particularly on Instagram, particularly on YouTube. And look at the combination of way they're using these different platforms. We have this myth presented to us all the time that content is king, and it's all about content marketing. I do believe this is nonsense, total nonsense. The environment now created online by Facebook, by Twitter, by LinkedIn, by all of these platforms, is if you want to join in and play, you've got to pay. They have a program which is called PUPO at all of these companies, which stands for pay up or pit, and so you can figure out. The environment online now is very much, if you don't play online, if you don't pay, you can't join anymore. It's very, very difficult to join in and play this game. And it is a game, and it is a marketing game. And gathering your audience and gathering your followers, and you see it all the time when Zuckerberg is speaking at Facebook, this is a very simple game that they started a long time ago, and the rules are very simple. The winner of the game is the one with all the names. Google, Amazon, Facebook, they're all focused on Apple, on getting the names first, getting us first. Not just for one thing, but for everything. Building your brand offline is critical. Coming to events like Joel's and Peter's and taking part in these groups is critical. But after you've been at a group like this, or you've been at an event like this, and you've formed 3 or 4 new friendships on your tables as you've been debating these topics that Joel's been giving you, why not form, if you've got on with one another, that is, if you haven't, then no, why not form a little WhatsApp group of your table, form the group, join the group now, so you can chat about what you learnt today on the way back on your train. A real-time, instant group of the people on my table today. So these relationships are not lost. So your learnings are not lost. And perhaps Joel could be the organizer of those groups so that you can all chat with one another about what you learn. So you can have an instant mobile social group together this afternoon on WhatsApp before you go out the door for free. Have you got to buy any software? No. Have you got WhatsApp on your phones? Yes. Does it cost anything to use? No. How long will it take, Joel, to get you all on there? About an hour. So try and link the two together. One of the things I try and do all the time is disturb myself with the technology. So I do run Windows, I do run Mac, I do run Android, I run everything. I use all the devices, and I use them all at the same time to try and disturb myself continually so that I can adjust to the Microsoft way, the Google way, the Amazon way, the Facebook way. One of the things I find very fascinating is the gap now between Google and Apple is widening. And the gap between Google and Microsoft is widening, and it's widening faster than you would expect. So Google currently have an application called Android 7. It runs your mobile phone if you're on the latest version, and it reads all your email. It reads every message in your WhatsApp. It reads every message on Twitter, and it learns. It learns who you are. In a very simple way, in a primitive way, really, what it does is it picks things out of your email, out of your WhatsApp, out of your SMS, or not iMessage in this case, out of your Twitter, and it reminds you of things in a notification layer. You haven't phoned Joel back. You didn't send that note to Peter. Make sure you've got your tickets for that concert you're going to. And it nudges you. It also visits all the news sites and says, you know, you visited the FT on Tuesday. You didn't finish reading that article. Here it is. And here's the summary. Now, all of that is live and up and running inside Android 7. Now, I've been using it for about 3 months. It's very powerful. So the machines have got a role. But it's like a digital assistant, like a digital buddy. But obviously, the more a machine knows what you're reading, what you're sending, what you're receiving, who you're phoning, what tasks you're completing, the easier it is for it to recommend a flight, a car, a piece of software, a restaurant, a location, a type of drink. And so these systems are getting faster and faster. And this is called the generation of the bots. And we've had 10 years of, we've got an app for that. And now in California, they say, we've got a bot for that. Isn't it lovely? Where there's mystery, there's margin. These systems are going to get more sophisticated. And I can tell you, it's in your interest to train them. The smarter they become, the less work you have to do. And we all want to do less work and make more money in less time, right? So you have to make a decision. Are you going to let these bots into your life? Are you going to let them intrude into your life? Gentleman there shaking his head, no chance. So I let everything into my life because I know all these guys in California and I know what they're really up to, and I know it's just a game to them. It's just an intellectual exercise. They don't need any money, mostly billionaires. When you meet their children, the kids want to be billionaires too. But AI is beginning to enter through your smartphone. Now, a very simple example with WhatsApp. If you send a message to your husband, your wife, your children, and mention different brand names in your WhatsApp message, you'll notice those brand names will show up in your stream on Facebook. So taking the key word out of your WhatsApp message and putting it as an ad in your stream on Facebook. Nice, simple. So you can change your messages to change your stream. Very simple. And we all know in any form of business development or selling, we listen for keywords ourselves, and then we change our sentences to match the person that we're with, be us supplier or client. Now, big breakthrough was that godforsaken game Pokemon that reappeared, 6, 8, 10 weeks ago? 55 million users. 55 million users from a standing start in 90 days. Have any of you been playing it? Oh, not me. Yes, guilty. 3. Is that 4? 5. So that's the WhatsApp Pokemon group, Joel. It is a godforsaken game, and the guy who designed it all and wrote it, people always say it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. He's been working on that game since 1991. That took nearly 10 years to write that software. So it cost nearly nearly $2 billion to write that. That is seriously good, what he wrote there, and his team. But what it showed is the loneliness of humans from technology, from the internet, from social media. 55 million people started playing a game offline using a smartphone. A game in the street with a smartphone. And many times you'll have seen people walking down the street like this over the last 3 months around the world, playing that game, gathering the points. But what Pokemon have demonstrated is the next kind of brand. And you've had a session debating gamification. This is a very clever way to build a brand. Because if you consider all the things that they've done, they've used a game. You have to collect things. In our day, it was Green Shield stamps, wasn't it, Peter? That's the bit where you nod. You have to collect things. You have to use a smart device. You have to involve other people to get more points. What Pokemon are doing is community building. What's fascinating is they could build a 55 million person community, B2B, B2C, B2 anything, in 90 days. Imagine if you had a community of 55 million people in 90 days for your business. Phenomenal, phenomenal achievement. But they showed the mix. They showed the blend between the online and the off, between the mobile and the social. And they also got people physically moving, walking down the street, playing a kind of healthy lifestyle, eating obesity card as well. Very, very clever. So, I want in your organizations your mantras to be community first, commerce second. Maintain that focus. There's a lot of focus on sign up to this, subscribe to that. But people are desperately lonely to be part of something. They want to join something. And your brand, business brand, is a club. It's a place where people can go and join and engage and chat. Offline, like this, and online, like this. But people want both. And you can't have a transaction without a conversation. Conversations create transactions. But we're missing out the conversation piece at the beginning because we're not building community in B2B. And it takes a while to build community in B2B. And if you look at things like LinkedIn, would you regard LinkedIn as a utility or as a community? Those who would regard LinkedIn as a utility. Those who would, those who would regard LinkedIn as a community. So that means 2/3 of the people have no idea. The key thing in this environment online is if you want to build followers, if you want to build fans, is you've got to stand for something for people to join. Signing up, subscribing. People want to be part of something. And you want them to be part of your brand. And to be part of your brand has to become a movement, a cause, something that people can latch onto. And you're seeing it happening now. That's my 5 minutes for Q&A. Okay. Thank you. I'm done. That's the last slide, I think. We have some more. Yes. The time it takes to upgrade yourself, if you like, to build your... I've always loved this. This is one of Bob's favorites. I can be upgraded. Can you? It took me 10 years to build 100,000 followers on Twitter. 10 years, every day. I found it really hard. It took me years to figure out how to use Twitter. Years and years and years. Years to figure out how to use it. Skilling yourself up on Snapchat, what a nightmare. Getting used to building groups on WhatsApp, a nightmare. All of these things we have to learn. And you know, these things are coming at us faster and faster. And so you have to continually upgrade. Effectively, we all have to become learning machines ourselves. And we have a competitor now, and it's a machine too, called AI. So please try and turn yourself into that learning machine environment and make sure you can be upgraded.